You just got your paycheck. After taxes and bills, you've got $800 left over, and you're staring at two apps on your phone. Your savings account showing $3,200 and your investment app showing $12,000 in index funds. Here's the thing. You know you should do something with that $800, but you're completely paralyzed. Should you add it to savings? Throw it all into the market? Split it somehow? So you do what most people do. You leave it in checking, tell yourself you'll decide later, and 3 weeks from now, it's somehow gone and you have no idea where it went. I'm Brian, and today we're solving this problem once and for all with what I call the 6-month rule. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never be confused about this decision again. So let's talk about why this decision paralyzes so many people. According to a Bankrate survey, 56% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency expense from savings. At the same time, Vanguard reports that the average 401k balance for people in their 30s is around $42,000. Think about that for a second. We have people with tens of thousands in retirement accounts who would need to go into debt if their car breaks down. That's completely backwards, and it's because nobody's explained the hierarchy of where your money should go. Here's what's happening psychologically. You've been told that investing early is critical because of compound interest. You've seen those charts showing that $500 per month invested from age 25 grows to $1.2 million by 65. But if you start at 35, you only get to $560,000, so you're terrified of missing out on market returns. But at the same time, you've also been told to have an emergency fund. 6 months of expenses, they say. For most people, that's $15,000 to $30,000 just sitting in a savings account earning basically nothing. And your brain is screaming at you that you're losing money to inflation, that you should have that cash working for you in the market. So what do most people do? They try to do both halfway. They keep some inadequate emergency fund like $2,000 and they invest the rest. Then when the emergency inevitably comes, they either go into credit card debt or they're forced to sell investments at the worst possible time, probably at a loss. Let me show you exactly how expensive this mistake is. Let's say you're 28 years old making $55,000 a year. You've got $5,000 saved and you're trying to figure out what to do with your next $10,000 in cash. You decide to be aggressive. You invest it all because you want those market returns. 6 months later, your car needs a $3,500 repair. You don't have cash, so you put it on a credit card at 19% interest. You tell yourself you'll pay it off quickly, but life happens, other expenses come up, and that balance sticks around for 18 months while you pay minimums plus a little extra. Total interest paid on that $3,500, about $650, but it gets worse. Because you had to redirect money to pay off that credit card debt, you couldn't invest your monthly surplus. Over those 18 months, you would have invested about $6,000 if you weren't dealing with the debt. At a 7% annual return over the next 30 years until retirement, that $6,000 would have grown to about $45,000. So your decision to not have an adequate emergency fund didn't cost you $650 in interest. It cost you $45,000 in lost compound growth. And that's just one emergency. Now let's look at the opposite mistake. You're so scared of not having enough savings that you keep $25,000 in a savings account, earning 4% interest if you're lucky. Meanwhile, you're only investing $200 per month into your 401k. Over 30 years, that $25,000 in savings earning 4% grows to about $81,000. Not bad, right? But if you had kept only $10,000 in savings and invested that extra $15,000 plus increased your monthly contributions, earning 10% market returns, that same $15,000 would grow to about $262,000. You just cost yourself $181,000 by being too conservative with money you didn't actually need in cash. Both extremes are expensive. That's why you need a framework. And that framework is the 6-month rule. All right, here's the framework that's going to change everything for you. It's dead simple. Your savings account should hold exactly 6 months of essential expenses. Not 3 months, not 12 months, 6. Once you hit that number, every additional dollar goes to investing. And now before you start arguing with me in the comments, let me explain exactly why it's 6 months and not some other number. 3 months is too short. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average job search takes about 5 months. If you lose your job with only 3 months saved, you're in panic mode by month 4, taking the first terrible offer that comes along just to survive. You've got no negotiating power. 12 months is too long. Yes, it feels safer, but you're sacrificing massive long-term growth for marginal additional security. The odds that you'll face an emergency requiring more than 6 months of expenses is very low if you have decent insurance coverage. And if you do face something that catastrophic, you probably have bigger problems that money alone won't solve. 6 months is the sweet spot. It's enough to cover job loss, average search time, plus buffer, major medical expenses after insurance, home or car repairs, unexpected family emergencies. Any combination of smaller emergencies. Here's what most people don't realize. An emergency fund isn't about covering every possible scenario. It's about covering probable scenarios while still allowing you to build wealth. You're not trying to be prepared for an asteroid hitting your house. You're trying to be prepared for normal life chaos. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Those 6 months of expenses aren't 6 months of your current lifestyle. They're 6 months of your essential expenses. Let me show you what I mean. Your monthly expenses might look like this. Rent/mortgage, $1,600. Groceries, $500. Car payment, $400. Insurance. Car, health, etc., $350. Utilities, $180. Phone/internet, $100. Gas, $150. Minimum debt payments, $200. Gym membership, $50. Streaming services, $45. Dining out, $350. Entertainment, $200. Shopping/mess, $275. Total, $4,400/month. But in an emergency, like if you lost your job, you would immediately cut the non-essentials. No dining out, no entertainment budget, no new clothes. Your essential expenses are more like rent/mortgage, $1,600, groceries, $400, buying basics, no fancy stuff, car payment, $400, insurance, $350, utilities, $180, phone/internet, $100, gas, $100, less driving, minimum debt payments, $200. Total, $3,330 per month. Your 6-month emergency fund needs to be $19,980. Let's call it $20,000, not $26,400 based on your full lifestyle. This is a massive psychological shift. Most people think they need to save based on their current spending habits, but your emergency fund is supposed to fund survival mode, not your comfortable lifestyle. That's what your income is for. Okay, so now you understand the target. Let's talk about how to actually hit it, because this is where most people get stuck. Step 1, calculate your number right now. Pause this video and list out your truly essential monthly expenses. Be honest. If you lost your job tomorrow, what would you absolutely have to pay? Multiply that by 6. That's your emergency fund target. For most people, this number is going to be between $12,000 and $25,000. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it. Step 2, assess where you are. How much do you currently have in liquid savings? And I mean actual savings, not retirement accounts, not money you've earmarked for a vacation, not your crypto portfolio. Cash that you could access in 24 hours if needed. Let's say your target is $20,000 and you currently have $4,500. You're $15,500 short. That becomes your immediate financial priority. Step 3, Create a savings sprint. Here's what you're going to do, Yas. For the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to attack that emergency fund gap with intensity. This means minimum contributions to retirement, just enough to get employer match if you have one. All extra money goes to savings, cut discretionary spending temporarily, consider a side hustle if possible. If you can save $1,000 per month, you'll hit that $20,000 in about 15 months. If you can push it to $1,500 per month, you're done in 10 months. Now you might be thinking, but Brian, what about compound interest? What about missing out on market returns during those 10 to 15 months? Let me show you why this doesn't matter as much as you think. If you invest $1,000 per month for 15 months instead of saving it, at a 10% annual return after 30 years, that would grow to about $660,000. If you save for 15 months, then invest that same $1,000 per month for the remaining time, it grows to about $630,000. You lost about $30,000 in future returns, but you know what you gained: peace of mind, security, the ability to handle life without debt. And most importantly, you protected yourself from the scenario where you need money in year 2, don't have it, go into debt, and completely derail your entire financial trajectory. That scenario costs you way more than $30,000. Step 4, the hybrid approach for the impatient. Just look, I get it. Like, some of you are going to hate the idea of not investing for 10 to 15 months. Your FOMO is screaming at you. So here's a compromise that's not optimal, but is better than doing nothing. Do a 70-30 split. 70% of your extra money goes to emergency fund, 30% goes to investing. This extends your timeline to hit your savings target, but you're still making progress on both fronts. Once you hit your 6-month number, flip to 100% investing. Step 5, maintain and forget. Once you hit your 6-month number, you're done with that account. You don't add to it anymore unless you dip into it. Every additional dollar goes to investing. Put that emergency fund in a high-yield savings account earning 4 to 5% if possible. Online banks like Marcus, Ally, or Wealthfront often have the best rates. Yes, it's earning less than the market, but that's not its job. Its job is to be there, liquid, and accessible when chaos strikes. Here's what nobody talks about. The real value of an emergency fund isn't the money. It's the psychological freedom it gives you to take smart risks with the rest of your money. When you don't have an emergency fund, you invest scared. Every market dip makes you panic because what if you need that money? What if this is the crash? You're tempted to sell at the worst possible time. But when you have 6 months of expenses saved, you can ride out market volatility without stress. Market down 20%? Who cares? You don't need that money for years. You can actually buy more while stocks are on sale. I've seen this pattern over and over. People without emergency funds are terrible investors. They panic sell. They make emotional decisions. They derail their long-term strategy because they're operating from a place of fear. People with solid emergency funds, they're calm, they're strategic, they stick to the plan. And over 20 to 30 years, that psychological difference translates to hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional returns. There's actually a name for this in behavioral finance. It's called loss aversion. Humans feel the pain of losses about twice as strongly as the pleasure of gains. When you're investing without a safety net, every market drop feels catastrophic. But when you have that cushion, you can handle volatility rationally. Here's another psychological shift that happens. Once you have that emergency fund fully funded, the money you're investing feels different. It's not money you might need. It's money that's genuinely working toward your future. You're no longer conflicted about tying it up in the market for decades. Let me tell you about my friend Marcus. He's 32, making about $70,000 a year. For years, he kept jumping between saving and investing, never committing to either. He'd save $3,000, then panic about missing market returns and invest it all. Then he'd need money for car repairs and have to sell at a loss or use credit cards. I finally convinced him to just hunker down and build a proper 6-month fund. $18,000 for him. It took him 13 months of intense focus. During that time, the market went up about 12%, and he was torturing himself about the returns he was missing. But here's what happened. Once he hit that $18,000, something changed. He started investing aggressively, maxing his Roth IRA, contributing heavily to his 401k, and when the market had a correction 6 months later, dropping 15%, he didn't flinch. He actually increased his contributions because he knew his foundation was solid. 3 years later, Marcus has $75,000 invested and still has his full emergency fund. His friend who kept trying to do both simultaneously has about $45,000 invested, $4,000 in savings, and $8,000 in credit card debt from emergencies. Marcus is $46,000 ahead. The 13 months of sacrifice paid off exponentially. All right, let's make this concrete. Here's exactly what you're doing starting today. Today, next 2 hours, calculate your essential monthly expenses. Be ruthless about what's actually essential. Multiply by 6, that's your target. Check your current liquid savings. That's where you are. Subtract where you are from where you need to be. That's your gap. This week, open a high-yield savings account if you don't have one. Shop around for the best rate. Set up automatic transfer from checking to savings. Start with whatever you can, $100, $500, $1,000 per month. If you're currently investing beyond employer match, temporarily redirect that money to emergency fund building. This month, audit your spending for the last 30 days. Find $200 to $500 you can cut temporarily. Redirect all extra money to emergency fund. Tax refunds, bonuses, gift money, side hustle income. Calculate your timeline. If you can save X dollars per month, how long until you hit your target? Next 6 to 12 months, execute the plan. Saving sprint mode, as track progress monthly. Watching that number climb is actually motivating. Resist the urge to invest before you hit your target. Once you hit 6 months saved, immediately flip to aggressive investing. After you hit your target, move to 100% investing with extra money after continuing to fund 401k match. Only touch emergency fund for actual emergencies, job loss, medical, major repairs. If you do use it, replenish it before resuming aggressive investing. Here's a decision tree to make this even simpler. Do you have 6 months of essential expenses saved? No. Save aggressively, 70 to 100% of extra money to savings. Yes. Invest aggressively, 100% of extra money to investing. That's it. That's the whole framework. Look, here's the bottom line. Trying to save, invest, and pay off everything at once only creates confusion and paralysis. The 6-month rule brings clarity. First, build your emergency fund, then invest. One goal at a time, not all at once. Those months aren't wasted time. They're the foundation that lets real wealth finally grow.